Hey guys, welcome to Relationship Stories with Story Slices. The first story is titled, I never thought I'd be fighting to keep the roof over my head, especially not against my own neighbor. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. My name's Alex, and this is the story of how I nearly lost my childhood home to the most entitled person I've ever met. It all started about 6 months ago when my grandmother passed away. We were close, and losing her hit me hard. She'd raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was just a kid. Her house, a modest 2-story in a quiet suburban neighborhood, had been my home for most of my life. In her will, Grandma left the house to me. It wasn't a surprise. We'd talked about it before, and she knew how much the place meant to me. What was a surprise, though, was the reaction of our next-door neighbor, Karen Thompson. Karen had moved in about 5 years ago, and she'd been a thorn in our side ever since, always complaining about the height of our grass or the color of our mailbox. Grandma used to say that some people just aren't happy unless they're making others miserable. I guess Karen was living proof of that. The day after the funeral, I was sitting on the front porch trying to come to terms with everything, when Karen marched up the walkway. Her bottle blonde hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and she had that pinched look on her face that always meant trouble. "Alex," she said, not bothering with any pleasantries, "I need to talk to you about the house." I sighed, really not in the mood for whatever petty complaint she had cooked up this time. "What about it, Karen?" She crossed her arms, looking down at me like I was some kind of bug. "Well, now that your grandmother's passed, I assume you'll be selling?" The question caught me off guard. No? Actually, I'm going to be living here." Karen's eyes narrowed. "That's not possible. I'm buying this house." I blinked. Sure, I must have misheard her. "Excuse me?" "Your grandmother and I had an agreement," Karen said, her voice dripping with condescension. "She was going to sell me the house. I've already started the paperwork." Now, I knew this was complete nonsense. Grandma would never have agreed to sell to Karen, of all people. Plus, she'd left the house to me in her will. But Karen seemed dead serious. "I don't know what you think you're talking about," I said, trying to keep my cool. "But that's not happening. The house is mine now. Grandma left it to me in her will." Karen's face turned an alarming shade of red. "Don't be ridiculous. I have a verbal agreement with Edna. You can't just swoop in and take what's rightfully mine." I stood up, my patience wearing thin. "Look, Karen, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is my house now. There's no agreement, no sale, nothing. And even if there was, a verbal agreement doesn't mean squat legally. So please, just go home." She jabbed a finger at my chest. "You listen here, you little brat. I've wanted this house for years, and I'm not about to let some snot-nosed kid steal it from me. I'll be contacting my lawyer about this." With that, she spun on her heel and stormed off, leaving me standing there in shock. I couldn't believe the audacity of this woman. Who did she think she was? Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would drag on for months. The next day, I got a call from a real estate agent. "Hi, is this Alex? I'm calling about the house at 1242 Maple Street. I understand you're the seller?" My stomach dropped. No, there must be some mistake. I'm not selling the house. The agent sounded confused. "Oh, I have it listed here. A Mrs. Thompson contacted us about putting it on the market." I felt a surge of anger. "Mrs. Thompson doesn't own this house." "I do? And it's not for sale." After clearing up the confusion with the agent, I immediately called a lawyer. I had a feeling I was going to need one. My lawyer, Sarah Jenkins, listened patiently as I explained the situation. When I finished, she let out a low whistle. "Sounds like you've got quite a problem on your hands, Alex. But don't worry, we'll sort this out." Sarah advised me to gather all the documentation I had proving my ownership of the house, the will, the deed, everything. She also suggested I install security cameras, just in case Karen tried anything sneaky. For a few days, things were quiet. Too quiet, as it turned out. I was in the backyard, mowing the lawn, when I heard a commotion out front. I shut off the mower and headed around to investigate. What I saw made my blood boil. Karen was standing in my driveway with a couple I'd never seen before. She was gesturing at the house like a game show host revealing a prize. "As you can see, it's a charming property," I heard her say as I approached. "Lots of potential? Of course, we'll need to update that awful siding. But, excuse me," I cut in, barely containing my anger. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Karen turned, her face a mask of innocence. "Oh, Alex, I was just showing the Johnsons around. They're very interested in buying." The couple looked between Karen and me, clearly confused. "I'm sorry," the woman said. "We thought, aren't you the owner?" She directed this at Karen. "No, she's not," I said firmly. I am? And this house is not for sale." Karen laughed, a high, fake sound. "Oh, Alex is just confused. You see, his grandmother and I had an agreement." "There was no agreement," I snapped. "This is my house. I inherited it from my grandmother. And you," I turned to the couple, "I'm sorry you got dragged into this, but please leave." "Now?" The Johnsons, looking embarrassed and a little scared, quickly retreated to their car. Karen, on the other hand, wasn't budging. "You're making a big mistake, Alex," she hissed. "I have friends in high places. I can make your life very difficult." I stood my ground. "Get off my property, Karen. Now, or I'm calling the police." She glared at me for a long moment before finally turning and stomping back to her house. I watched her go, my heart pounding. This was getting out of hand. I called Sarah right away and filled her in on what had happened. She agreed it was time to take more serious action. "We need to send her a cease and desist letter," Sarah said. "And we should file for a restraining order. What she's doing could be considered harassment and fraud." I agreed, and Sarah got to work on the legal documents. Meanwhile, I started documenting everything. Every interaction with Karen, every strange car that showed up looking at the house, everything. A week later, Karen was served with a cease and desist letter. I thought that might be the end of it. I should have known better. The very next day, I came home from work to find a for sale sign planted in my front yard. I yanked it out of the ground, my hands shaking with anger. This had gone too far. I marched over to Karen's house and pounded on the door. She answered with a smug smile. "Yes, yes?" I thrust the sign at her. "What the hell is this?" She examined her nails, the picture of nonchalance. "It's a for sale sign, obviously. I told you, I'm selling this house." "This is my house," I shouted, losing my cool. "You have no right to do this." Karen's smile turned nasty. "Oh, I have every right. And you'll see, Alex. You can't fight me on this. I always get what I want." I was about to respond when I noticed movement behind her. There was a man in her living room watching our exchange with interest. "Who's that?" I demanded. Karen glanced over her shoulder. "Oh, that's just my lawyer. We were just discussing our options for getting you out of my house." I felt a chill run down my spine. This was escalating faster than I could handle. "Your house? You're delusional, Karen. And you're going to be in a world of trouble if you don't stop this right now." She just laughed and shut the door in my face. I retreated to my house, my mind racing. I needed to call Sarah again. This was getting serious. Sarah listened gravely as I recounted the latest developments. "This is definitely crossing into illegal territory now," she said. "We need to file a police report for harassment and attempted fraud. And we're going to court for that restraining order, AA." The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. We filed the police report, and I had to give a statement detailing all of Karen's actions. The restraining order was granted, barring Karen from coming onto my property or attempting to sell it. I thought that would be the end of it. But Karen, it seemed, was not one to give up easily. One evening, about a month after the restraining order was issued, I came home to find a moving truck in my driveway. My heart nearly stopped. I jumped out of my car and ran up to the movers, who were carrying a couch out of my house. "Stop, stop, what are you doing?" The movers looked confused. "We're moving out the old furniture, like the lady said. Are you the new owner?" "No, I'm the current owner," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "and I didn't hire any movers." "Who told you to do this?" One of the movers pointed across the street. There, watching from her front porch with a satisfied smirk, was Karen. I saw red. Ignoring the restraining order, I stormed across the street. Karen, what the hell do you think you're doing?" She stood up, looking annoyingly calm. "I'm preparing my new home, of course. The sale went through this morning." I was speechless for a moment. "What? What sale?" "There was no sale." Karen produced a document from her pocket. "Oh, but there was. See for yourself." I snatched the paper from her hand. It looked official at first glance, a deed transfer with my grandmother's name on it. But as I looked closer, I realized something was off. The signature? It wasn't Grandma's. "This is fake," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You forged this?" Karen's smug expression faltered for just a second before she recovered. "Prove it," she sneered. I pulled out my phone and dialed cop. "That's exactly what I'm going to do." The police arrived within minutes. I explained the situation, showing them the forged document and reminding them of the existing restraining order. They took statements from me, Karen, and the movers. Karen, for her part, kept insisting that she was the rightful owner of the house, but her story started to fall apart under questioning. She couldn't produce any other documents to support her claim, and she got flustered when asked about the details of the supposed sale. In the end, the police arrested Karen for violation of the restraining order, attempted fraud, and forgery. As they led her away in handcuffs, she was still yelling about how the house was rightfully hers. I watched as the patrol car drove away, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. Was it finally over? The aftermath of Karen's arrest was chaotic. News spread quickly through the neighborhood, and soon, everyone knew about the crazy lady who had tried to steal her neighbor's house. I had to appear in court to testify against Karen. It was a surreal experience, sitting there and recounting months of harassment and deceit. Karen's lawyer tried to paint her as a confused woman who genuinely believed she had a claim to the house, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. In the end, Karen was found guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in prison and ordered her to pay substantial fines and restitution. She was also barred from ever contacting me or coming near my property again. As Karen was led out of the courtroom, she locked eyes with me one last time. There was no remorse there, only anger and defiance. I had a feeling that, given the chance, she'd do it all over again. In the weeks that followed, I finally began to relax. The constant stress of the past few months started to fade, and I could enjoy living in my grandmother's house, my house, without fear. My neighbors, perhaps feeling guilty for not having intervened earlier, became extra friendly. Mrs. Johnson from across the street brought over a homemade pie. Old Mr. Peterson offered to help me repaint the porch. It was nice, but also a stark reminder of how isolating the whole ordeal had been. One afternoon, as I was sorting through some of Grandma's old things in the attic, I came across a photo album I'd never seen before. Inside were pictures of my grandparents when they first moved into the house, young and full of dreams. There was one of my mom as a little girl, grinning gap-toothed in front of the fireplace. And there, near the back, was a photo of me, maybe 5 or 6 years old, helping Grandma plant flowers in the front yard. Looking at those photos, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. This wasn't just a house, it was a home, filled with generations of memories. And I had fought to keep it, just like Grandma would have wanted. As I closed the album, I made a silent promise to my grandmother. I would take care of this house, fill it with new memories, and maybe someday, pass it on to my own family. The whole experience with Karen had been a nightmare, but in a way, it had also been a gift. It had shown me just how much this place meant to me, and how far I was willing to go to protect it. Now, 6 months after Karen's arrest, life has pretty much returned to normal. Well, as normal as it can be when your former neighbor is in prison for trying to steal your house. I've made some changes to the place, updated the security system for one thing. I've also started renovating the kitchen, something Grandma had always talked about doing but never got around to. It feels good, putting my own stamp on the house while still honoring her memory. Karen's house sold last month. The new neighbors seemed nice, a young couple with a baby on the way. They were a bit wary when they first moved in, having heard all about the crazy lady who used to live there. But we've started to build a friendly relationship. I even helped them move in some of their heavier furniture. Sometimes, when I'm sitting on the porch in the evening, watching the sunset just like Grandma used to do, I think about everything that happened. It all seems so absurd now, like a bad dream. But then I remember the fear, the anger, the feeling of helplessness as I watched someone try to take away everything I loved. I learned a lot from the experience, about the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it's scary, about the value of good neighbors and a strong community, and about the power of home, not just as a place to live, but as a connection to our past and a foundation for our future. I know Grandma would be proud of how I handled everything. She always taught me to be strong, to fight for what's right. In a way, defending this house was my final gift to her, protecting the home she'd worked so hard to create. As for Karen, well, I heard she's not doing so well in prison. Apparently, her entitled attitude didn't win her many friends inside. Part of me feels sorry for her, but a bigger part is just relieved that she's out of my life. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday I'll have a family of my own to fill these rooms. Maybe I'll be the cool uncle who hosts amazing holiday parties. Or maybe I'll just be the guy who always has the best kept lawn on the block. Whatever happens, I know one thing for sure. This house, this home, is where I belong. And no entitled Karen, or anyone else, is ever going to take that away from me. As I sit here, typing out this story to share with all of you, I can't help but feel grateful. Grateful for my grandmother, for this house, and yes, even for the experience with Karen. Because in the end, it all led me here, to a place of appreciation, strength, and home. So, to anyone out there dealing with their own Karen, stand your ground, fight for what's yours, and never underestimate the power of home. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the walls and the roof. It's about the memories, the love, and the sense of belonging that no one can take away from you. And to Karen, wherever you are, I hope you've learned your lesson. Because this house, it's mine, and it always will be. The next one is malicious compliance story. I am an administrator for an institution that works in the public sector. The hierarchy of this structure is slightly complicated because of the nature of the job, criminal justice. I oversee around 20 employees. Those employees are supervised by 4 individuals with rank for 4 different shifts. Each supervisor has another ranked, lesser person to assist them, so basically each shift has a primary and secondary supervisor. They all report to one individual who ranks beneath me, and I oversee all of them. I report to the individual in charge of the whole institution, and that person reports to an elected official who manages the entire department. The tricky part is the department has 2 divisions, and while this elected official oversees all of it, they really only run the other division. We have an employee who is very intelligent. However, his book smart is vast, and his actual experience in this line of work is minimal. He is a ranked assistant on one shift, so he works with the supervisor of one shift. He sends weekly emails complaining about all the other shifts and their mess-ups. He will write down everything from someone forgetting to remove trash, to someone making an error on a form, or even someone interpreting a directive differently than him. He makes it clear that his way is the correct way, and anyone not doing things his way should be written up. He shouts accountability constantly, or sends condescending emails after a directive is put in place, usually because someone messed up, and advises me you need to speak directly with the individual that caused this change, otherwise they won't have a clue. It's because of them, basically telling me and the head administrator how we should be doing our jobs. He targets employees and complains about them demanding demotion and accountability, and badmouths us for doing nothing about poor performance. Meanwhile, I have submitted multiple demotion requests and write-ups to HR for accountability, but the union steps in and dismisses many of them. This individual does not know or see any of this because personnel issues are not open discussions, and it really isn't his business what discipline is put in place, but it's being done. He just does not see it or hear about it to protect the privacy of that employee. Recently, he has started attacking a shift supervisor on the opposite shift. Anytime something is off, he sends an email with her opus accusations to that supervisor, all of which turn out to not even be true, or from that shift to begin with. He ranted about how he never sees the administrators, and in order to run a good facility administrators need to be visible and involved on every shift, even citing, "It's not that hard to come in late and stay late to speak to your employees," basically telling us how we should be doing our jobs. He wants monthly supervisor meetings instead of quarterly, because this will eliminate misunderstandings of directives that the other shifts are doing wrong. Little does he know we had monthly meetings for a long time and no one was able to make them, and nothing came of the meetings, so they requested quarterly meetings. I agree that visibility is important, and I stop in twice a month, night shift to check in and see day shift every day, but he never gets up to come speak to me during my rounds. He sits and reads or plays on his phone, which is allowed due to the nature of the job. He commented, "I can't recall the last time I saw any of you demanding that admins come in more to micromanage better. I was in a week prior, so that kinda upset me as he won't acknowledge me. So I started coming in more and told him, why are you sitting? You should be managing? There are things to be cleaned and sorted. You can count inventory of supplies. We don't pay you to sit around." This upset him because we do pay them to sit around until needed, if they have an intake. I then asked him why he was sitting in a restricted area. He stated it was quiet in there, and common sense shows he's not violating the rule because he didn't go past a specific point so he can sit there. It's a corridor leading to another part of the building not owned by us. I read him the directive which states, "At no point should anyone for any reason go beyond this door unless in an emergency evacuation situation." I asked him again what was so difficult to understand about this request. He still found nothing wrong with going past the door to sit on the other side. I told him he has demanded accountability, so he would be getting a write-up for not following the directive. He flipped out saying it was such a minor thing, and reminded him of all the little minor things he complains about with the other shifts. I continued to come in and micromanage everyone. A few employees asked why I was there all the time because we hired supervisors to manage the shift, so did we not think they were capable of doing the job? I advised that some people felt that they couldn't manage the shift and wanted administrators to come in more. The complaining individual got several more write-ups, one major one for an almost fireable offense, showing that maybe, in fact, he didn't have all the answers. He sent an email to my supervisor complaining that I was micromanaging and being extremely anal with the minor write-up infractions that he now says aren't that big to even be reprimanded for. My supervisor asked, "But this is what you wanted, is it not? You complained that you wanted us to be seen and manage more and hold people accountable when they mess up." The complaining individual wanted other people written up but not himself because he was never wrong, or that's what he implied. I went back to my regular twice-a-month check-in, which is just stopping in to see how things are going on the shift. The complainer has been quiet for now, sitting inside the allowable room reading. His superiority complex will be his downfall. I remind him that the newest employees are the ones we can learn the most from, and he needs to value knowledge he can get from anyone, regardless of their experience or rank status. I'm an administrator, and I tell staff I am always learning and will continue to learn from everyone. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.